Good day, Internet. This is DTNS Live for Monday, May 19th, 2025. From Studio Animal House, I'm Sarah Lane.
From Studio 7 in Los Angeles, I'm Tom Merritt.
From deep in the heart of Texas, I'm Justin Robert Young.
And I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
This little live stream is made possible by you. Yeah, I know. You're like, wait, what did I do? Well, you, Alo, a.k.a. Adam L., Tony Glass, and Philip Less, all supported us in a big way on Patreon, as did our brand new patrons, Son, Joel, Grant, Cephalian, and Artem.
Hey!
Thanks, y'all. Good to have new patrons.
Oh man, what a fun way to start a Monday. We got 5 new patrons over the
Five new
weekend.
patrons, one for every finger.
Indeed. Unless you're the 6-fingered man, but that's something else entirely. Welcome to DTNS Live, everyone. This is the show where we discuss the tech news to help us all understand it as we go through it together, so it gets better. How's everybody doing? Justin Robert Young, what's happening in the heart of Texas?
Indeed. The capital of the Lone Star State is a little heated, right? We've broken through our unseasonably beautiful weather. Now it's in the 80s, but there's been some cloud cover and a little rain, so we'll take it.
How are you, Justin?
Oh, me spiritually, I am rugged.
Or was that your soul.
Or was that actually a description of your inner state as well?
I would say I am rugged and roughshod, but still holding strong.
I'd call you undaunted.
I feel like for anyone who's like, all they do is talk about the weather, it's like, maybe we're talking about our souls.
Ourselves.
Partly cloudy with a chance of showers.
The real weather is the friends you meet along the way.
Is it so? So if I hit a blizzard and sleet and all that, that's the relationship.
Well, then the friend who gets you
that
out
would totally
of the
track
ice
for you,
is
Roger.
your best friend.
I went down the road of life, and all I got was a road of black ice.
Listen, we're going to cure everything wrong with Apple today. So
we are.
Oh, Apple needs to take a DTNS Live a day and keeps the
It's going to be
keeps the investor anger away.
It's going to be a corporate diagnosis for the rest of us.
For the rest of us. I get that reference.
What about The Last of Us?
Oh, no, we'll never get to the news if we start talking about that.
Don't get me
No.
started.
I was just saying Rest of Us, Last of Us. Yes, no spoilers. No spoilers on this show. We don't do that, at least not on purpose. But we do check the news. So we're going to start right now with the quick hits.
Google launched its NotebookLM app for Android, has native support for managing its AI-powered notebooks, adding sources like PDFs, YouTube videos, websites, and of course, listen to its famous audio overviews, even offline. A join feature in beta lets you interact with those famous generated hosts with follow-up questions. The app integrates into the Android share sheet and replaces the web-based progressive web app with a native interface. However, if you're on iOS, you got to wait a little bit, still pending release there.
How dare they? How dare they? I love those podcast hosts.
We're going to do a deep dive into how dare they, just in a little bit.
AMD is selling the server manufacturing arm of ZT Systems, which it acquired back in 2024, to Sanmina in a $3 billion deal. I was about to say million. No, $3 billion. The move is part of AMD's broader effort to strengthen U.S.-based chip production, streamline its supply chain amid geopolitical tensions. We've talked about this ad nauseum, but they are ongoing, and government pushes to reshore semiconductor manufacturing. The deal is expected to close by the end of this year.
Man, we got Google I.O. this week. We got Microsoft Build already underway, and Computex is happening in Taipei. NVIDIA announced NVLink Fusion, which lets a company use a third-party chip but still take advantage of NVIDIA's high-speed NVLink interconnect. So Qualcomm, Fujitsu, and MediaTek, as well as Marvell, are all among the folks who are going to build custom systems that will connect directly with NVIDIA systems. NVIDIA, TSMC, and Foxconn also announced they're collaborating to build a supercomputer in Taiwan powered by 10,000 Blackwell GPUs meant to support research for things like smart city development, EV tech, and manufacturing. TSMC says it's going to be using it to accelerate its research and development.
Pharmaceutical company Regeneron says it will acquire 23andMe, along with all of 23andMe's data, which would give it access to that personal information and genetic data of 23andMe's 15 million customers. You might recall that 23andMe filed bankruptcy back in March. Regeneron says it will use the data to support drug discovery. And it says, for anybody who's like, uh-oh, here we go, data being sold, this is all very personal, it pledges to uphold privacy and legal standards. Will it do that? Time will tell. The deal is pending bankruptcy court approval on June 17th.
And China's National Bureau of Statistics said China's industrial robot production grew 51.5% year over year as of April. That puts it at about 71,000 units. Still, number of robots per capita, because China's so big, is behind other countries like South Korea. Startup UBTech says it plans to deliver as many as 1,000 humanoid robots this year, and Unitree is expanding production with the new factory.
All right, everybody, let us hearken back to the days of yore when we all sat around the television watching Sesame Street while mom or dad or Aunt Martha cooked dinner, wherever you may be. Not everybody remembers it this way, but I do. Literally, Sesame Street was the way that I was babysat within my own home while my parents did other things.
Did you have a lineup of Sesame Street in your house? Because for me, it was always Mr. Rogers into Sesame Street into Electric Company.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. And Mr. Rogers was... at one point in my life, I loved Mr. Rogers. Then I was kind of like, I might be aging out of Mr. Rogers a little bit. It's kind of for the younger kids.
You're like,
then I was squarely
now.
Sesame Street. And Electric Company, when I was, kind of on the Mr. Rogers side, was a little scary. Because, hey, you guys. And I'd be like, they're yelling. I don't know. I'm ready for this. It felt like it was like more like, to me, it was like, ooh, it's for big kids. Even though it was very much for kids. Anyway, what we're getting at here is that Sesame Street is alive and well. Netflix has acquired exclusive global streaming rights to Sesame Street, starting with season 56, after Warner Brothers Discovery chose not to renew its Max deal. We talked about that some time back. Netflix also gets access to 90 hours of past episodes and rights to develop video games, because it's Netflix after all, based on Sesame Street and also Mecha Builders. Sesame Street will continue to air in the U.S. on PBS. So if you're sort of like, oh man, what about those old days? I think they're kind of still there if you're in the U.S., but global rights is a big deal for Netflix.
Yeah, I feel like this story constantly gets misunderstood and has since they first announced the HBO deal, where people are like, what? Sesame Street isn't on PBS anymore? It's like, no, it's been on PBS the whole time. It's stayed on PBS the whole time. New episodes always have premiered on PBS. The only thing in this story that's changed is the older episodes in the back catalog were Warner Brothers Discoveries, and now they're not. Now they're Netflix's. And to me, that's just further evidence that Netflix is mainstream television, not just in the U.S., but worldwide, but specifically in this case for the United States of like, hey, if you want to watch television, you turn on Netflix.
Well, it's just the changing way that people consume entertainment. Like that's the biggest thing that changes. Is the part of the reason why people have this reflexive thing about PBS that they don't know is because they don't watch PBS. Because the people that complain about it are probably predominantly, by the numbers, watching things on streaming. And so children's streaming entertainment is extraordinarily popular. According to these statistics, it's 15% of what Netflix serves. So that means of all the stuff that they put out there, 15% is just parents plopping their kids in front of the television, hitting a button on Netflix and letting them watch something. Mm-hmm. And Sesame Street is premium entertainment when it comes to that. So it makes sense. It makes sense that Max let them go because they are in their own weird world post merger and all the Zaslav of it all. But it makes sense for Netflix to require it. They're made of money, and they want everybody from cradle to grave to have something to watch on Netflix.
Well, and for anybody who's like, I don't know, Sesame Street, is it, do kids even like Sesame Street anymore? Which I don't. I had to ask some friends who have little kids, who were kind of around the same age as when, I was at my peak Sesame Street age back in the day. It's like, you can watch just kind of anything that you want on YouTube. And there are a variety of other shows on various networks. It sounds like season 56 is trying to serve some of the kids who just aren't necessarily going to watch something for an hour. New episode format featuring a single 11-minute story per episode. New animated segments that weren't there before. Again, I mean, I'm talking like late 70s, early 80s. This is the last time I really watched Sesame Street with any regularity. I will say, though, that the way that kids learn with the right programming, and not everybody learns the same way, but it's like, I was saying to a friend of mine earlier, because again, we were talking about, his kids and do they like Sesame Street, and he was like, they're into it, but they just want to watch like My Little Pony animated stuff, or so there's so many other options. And I was like, man, I mean, when it was in my day, it was like I learned Spanish. I mean, not fluent Spanish, but it's like I knew a lot of Spanish, numbers, how to spell things. I mean, like way before kindergarten. That was all Sesame Street. It was truly a fun thing for kids to walk away with a lot of knowledge. It's always been good at that.
I mean, Sesame Street in this day and age is more of a brand for the parents than the kids, right? Like,
you think so?
Oh yeah, definitely. You're appealing to the parents. You're not appealing to the kids. It's not to say that my kids don't like it, but there are so many other options, and the quality is on a sliding scale. Some of it's okay, they speak in complete senses, which is good. There are others that are very high quality, and what's interesting is
that you're talking about the competing children's
the competing content.
Gotcha.
And Sesame Street, at least initially, I don't know what past what season, but it was literally it was created with the help of academics in terms of what kind of content, the way to produce it. And what you see with the new format is an understanding that the contextual things that they used to do on Sesame Street, when they say brought to you by the letter A and brought to you, like those things have no meaning. And so you have to create new context so that when younger viewers watch it, they understand what you're talking about. But
wait, brought to you by, though, is very common in podcasts still.
It is,
kids
but it's
don't
not.
Listen
but
to
it's
that
not
kind of stuff.
Kids don't listen to Serial.
Yeah. No,
they eat cereal, but I'm not sure if there will be,
But then kids,
I don't think the
Rice
kids
Krispies.
need to think of it in terms of like who's sponsoring the letter A. It's more of just like today's letter A, and then talk about things that start with A.
But that's the thing that they'll overhear that now they can understand in context to this. So it's like there has to be a recognizing if you're going to make a contemporary programming, which Sesame Street has always been. It's wanted to live in the world that is modern. There's a reason why celebrities go on Sesame Street, because they want to know, oh, I've seen that when Daddy watches the TV. Now he's showing me how to be kind to somebody. They need to change that as well because culture is changing. And I would imagine that it's an even more challenging thing because Sesame Street was always able to echo off a monoculture and they can't anymore. So like, what culture are you reflecting?
Yeah.
They've shifted pretty well. I mean, like, even if you talk about the franchise versions of Sesame Street, which are usually international, there's a Latin American one, there's an Australian one, there's East Asia, British one, or not British, European one. They all really kind of contextually try to make it as relevant to that audience. And I think by going with smaller formats, they can appeal to a broader range of people by not having it format an hour-long show, but something
11-minute story, though. That seems long somehow.
I mean, I used to watch Reading Rainbow when I was in high school, and I those little story sections they used to do were at least 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes. And they were pretty Granted, I was a teen, but they were still very captivating.
What was that on Paramount Plus?
That was on Paramount Broadcasting System.
Okay, gotcha.
I mean, now that I think about it, I think of Sesame Street as like, it was like long form content because that's just what you had, and you had to watch it at a certain time of day or you're, there's no on demand going on with Sesame Street. But every episode would have, no spoilers, but everyone on Sesame Street would kind of be like, we're trying to figure out a thing, or Oscar the Grouch needs a new trash can, or there would be this ongoing thing during the show, but the segments themselves were sort of these tiny little vignettes.
Short.
And you'd
Yeah.
see them over and over
Yeah.
in subsequent episodes.
And they lean into it, right? If you make
Yeah.
something short enough, kids can rewatch it without having to rewatch an hour thing or even.
Well, and
back
once you
through.
like something, you're like, oh, this is the one where Kermit the Frog
Yes.
meets the woman
Kids
who lived
really
in a shoe.
like something a lot to the point where
Yeah.
you do not like it anymore.
Also,
the one thing that they have and they still do have a monopoly on is some of the best IP in the worlds of children entertainment, including Elmo and Cookie Monster and these ageless, timeless characters that will always be a part of American culture. So I think that's part of the reason why they get there. I would love to know. Do we know the number on this? On what they signed for? We have no idea the financials on this, do we?
Financials not disclosed, but we do know that kids and family content accounts for 15% of viewing hours on Netflix alone. So
Here's what we do know.
Netflix is like, this is a ripe audience.
They
for
wanted
us.
more money than what Warner wanted to pay them, and that Netflix agreed to pay them something close to
Whatever
what they
that
wanted.
was. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what we know.
Well, Tom, today's live stream of DTNS Live is brought to you by the letter B for build, B-U-I-L-D. That's how you spell build, but also what's going on at Microsoft Build today?
Yeah, Microsoft Build happening a day before I/O. So Microsoft getting out all its AI announcements before Google hits you with all their AI announcements tomorrow. If you want the complete rundown of what they announced, listen to the DTNS briefing. It's available right now. You can check that out. But the big story, I think, coming out of this is not just agentic AI. I mean, Microsoft was pushing agents. That's not a big surprise. That's what the entire industry is pushing right now. But specifically pushing two technologies that they're launching. One called NL Web, which will let you use a few lines of code to embed a text field and a submission button in a web page, and boom, that web page has access to a chatbot. And that chatbot can use whatever model the developer wants and use whatever data the developer wants that it has the rights to. Some examples that Microsoft gave were a clothing retail could have a website where you can say like, hey, I'm going on a trip to Romania. What's some clothes that I should buy? And it could make recommendations based on that. You can just do natural language. Cooking site could suggest side dishes for a recipe you're working on, stuff like that. Then I think the even bigger announcement is support for Model Context Protocol in Windows and Azure. MCP is often described as USB for AI. In other words, it lets multiple apps and services plug into each other so that they can interoperate. Anthropic introduced this last year. It's been picked up by OpenAI and Google already, and now Microsoft picking it up as well. The demo they gave to The Verge as an example of this was have Perplexity use its search prowess that it uses on the web to find files on your hard drive. So you could say, find all the files related to my vacation in my documents folder without having to give Perplexity, like, here's my documents folder, let me upload it. You didn't have to do that manually. It would just be able to use MCP and the registry to just know, like, oh, this is where I go. This is how I find them. And in an interview that Kevin Scott, the CTO at Microsoft, gave to The Verge, he was saying this could solve a lot of problems where sites are saying, I want to have control over what your agent tries to do on my website because it's not always going to work very well. You use MCP and NL Web to make it work better, and it can make the agents work better because the sites can support it, and MCP agents can go out and use that protocol to make sure they're going to take the best advantage. It's going to make agents work better. It feels like MCP is that thing you need to know about so that when agents start working really well and change how the web works, you're like, oh, it's that MCP thing I heard about.
How long before the MCP agents come to the MCU?
I don't know. Ask.
I mean, I'm only half kidding.
Ask Disney because they're probably working on it. Yeah.
This is a moment in time that I think we should actually like memorialize a little bit because it reminds me of apps. It reminds me of HTML. It reminds me of like core moments when behind the scenes or stuff that the general public isn't going to really understand, but people who care about tech will be able to point and say, hey, in a year, when every browser we work with is first and foremost agentic, meaning that we are not opening a window and going to a website. We are opening a window and asking it for a thing that we want, and then it is pulling it up, which is going to fundamentally reshape the way that we search for things on the internet. It's going to fundamentally reshape our relationship with browsers. This is the tech that you're going to be able to say, there were things that could do things like this until this happened. And now all of a sudden there's a whole world that can be interacted with that wasn't otherwise. I think this is the kind of stuff that is huge, that we're going to look back on, and it's going to be a big part of the Wikipedia entry.
It's kind of similar to Ajax. If you remember, websites before Ajax were kind of clunky and they could sort of look like an app sometimes. And then Ajax came along and suddenly you got Google Maps and you could just do things in websites. This is going to do that. Like right now, if an agent goes to a website that doesn't support MCP, it has to try to figure out that website. And that's a lot harder. It's not impossible, but it's a lot harder for the agent to do than if the MCP protocol is supported and the agent's like, oh, okay, so I just plug into this, this, and this, and then I can order your food or get you the recipe or whatever it is it's trying to do.
Yeah, it's kind of like what we've thought of as like APIs, where, you know, it's just able to access a lot of this stuff faster, and it's going to bring a lot more interaction. Now, the question is it going to bring the same kind of eyeballs? And that's where you get into other questions of like, all right, well, the free web, for as long as we've dealt with it, ran on advertising. Does that happen in the same way? You know,
that was the interesting thing that Scott was talking about in the Verge article, in the Verge interview. He was saying this can help with that because the MCP gives the website control too. So it could allow you to feed ads into your responses and require them. It could allow you to require subscription plans in order to get certain things done and have the agent work. Like, oh, the agent could say like, actually can't do that because you don't subscribe to that service, but would you like me to sign you up? It's only $1 a year.
My house
Boom,
is
boom,
on
boom,
fire.
boom.
Microsoft agent will.
Well, probably
like
House on Fire is not your, it's probably not your best version of that, but you want to order food from a restaurant, and the restaurant's like, oh, for the agent to work, it's $1 a year. Is that cool? And you're like, yeah, $1, sure. I want to eat those tacos.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, half kidding, but I wonder how the inevitable insertion of ads into responses like this in this next phase of the internet as we know it.
Yeah.
Or, you know, being connected as we know. I don't even know if we call it the internet at this point. You know, how that looks, you know, what kind of backlash there's going to be, because of course everybody hates ads, but that's just what we do.
I hadn't thought about it till you said that, but the idea that any technology could somehow make it so that ads don't get delivered is sort of laughable. They'll always figure it out. There's always a way to do it.
Yeah.
Well, but also the state of the ads that we're talking about in this scenario are dismal right now. Like, we are talking about vanishing returns for what would go on a website. We are talking about limits that we never thought that we would cross in terms of bothering your visitors. Ever expanding windows with moving X's on the corners, stuff like that. It's really gross. We are naturally, I think, ready as consumers to find a way to get this information in a way that is pleasing and interesting. And even if, and this is kind of another this has been a wish list on the internet forever, micropayments, like Tom is talking about, that might be more of a reality now, because the problem with micropayments forever, even as the technology has existed, I mean, PayPal's had fractional payments from, you know, when Elon was there. Like, it's the tech has been around for a very, very long time, but it's just the onerous nature of like, oh God, I gotta like, yes, I would happily pay 50 cents to read this one article right now, but you're telling me I got to hit a button and then I got to hit another button.
But it's going to take me 15 minutes to pay the 50 cents.
Like,
so forget
it.
Yeah.
So annoying. But if you could have it be done at like, oh, do you want to pay 50 cents for this? Yes, computer. Great. Boom, boom, boom. Done. It all happens. Now we're in a different world for it.
In-app payments are that. Every time you've been on, buying donuts in a game or adding a module to some app, some editor where you're like, oh, all I have to do is Face ID. Great. That's frictionless. That's the kind of thing that this could make happen for websites everywhere. You just wouldn't think of it as websites anymore because you're just talking to your agent.
Yes. And the agent is going shopping for you across the free web. Tom, do you think that like all this is going to look really different in a year? Do you think that like the browser is going to look very different in a year?
Maybe not a year, simply because, what we're talking about here is Microsoft saying in Windows and Edge, we're supporting it this way. And not MCP is a standard that's being supported across things, but it's going to take a while for that adoption cycle to get going. I think it'll happen faster than like Passkey or something like that, because there's more motivation for fun things to happen from this. But 2-3 years, yeah, I think so.
I think it'll be quicker. I think before the end of the year, we're going to see browsers possibly from people that we don't expect browsers from. Perplexity's already announced that they're going to do one. Could we see one from OpenAI? Who knows?
Yeah. No, I think we'll see that. It's whether the adoption makes it where like, oh yeah, everybody's doing that now. I think that's what takes a couple more years.
You'll know when it comes, when some truck pulls up alongside you at a red light and they have like, contact our agent. It'll just be on the side of the truck.
Yeah. Ask your agent for plumbing.
Ask your agent if plumbing is right for you. Thing is, we won't think about them as agents. Like we're saying agents right now because that's how companies are talking about implementing them. And maybe that becomes the term, or maybe it's just, I just type things in my browser now and they happen.
Show me the money.
Maybe it'll just be a mascot like Mr. Goodwrench.
Well, folks, we want to be your agent while humans are still allowed to do it. So tell us what you want to hear us talk about on the show. One way to let us know is our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at reddit.com/r/Daily Tech News Show.
Well, Justin Robert Young, we have been following the now multiple rollout delays for Apple Intelligence. If you're following along, you might wonder, what's really going on here? And you might have a reason as to why we're in the state that we're in. Let's talk about this.
Well, it is by way of an extraordinarily well-sourced story from Mark Gurman in Bloomberg, and it is about the delays of Apple Intelligence and really a lot of the philosophical decisions that have been made inside Cupertino that have hindered it in this world. And I'm somebody who very much I'm a huge purchaser of Apple products. I believe in their unified worldview of everything just working. But I gotta say, we're pushing up on a decade of me being a little skeptical of where they're headed. And a story like this, which paints the picture of a company that as they watched the big game-changing wave come onto their shores, they did a lot of dithering. They did a lot of assuming it wasn't really a thing. And they've only really made decisions to go full bore into this maybe months ago. Unless there is gigantic problems with the sourcing here, and we haven't seen huge pushback from Apple on it, so I don't assume that that's true, then I think Apple's vulnerable here. And I think that they're vulnerable, not like the company's going to go away, but are they looked at as an innovator, as a leader, as a culturally definitional company that creates the kinds of products that demand the price tag that they do? I don't know.
Apple is betting, from what I get after reading this Bloomberg story, which, like you said, is very well sourced and very well reported. And it's kind of significant that this many people within Apple were willing to talk, even if it's not on the record. I think Apple is banking that no one is going to make a chatbot or an assistant or anything in your devices that's so good that you're like, oh man, I'm jealous. I wish I had Gemini. I wish I had X. That seems to be what John Andrea's head is like, none of these are very good. They're certainly not good enough to put in an Apple product yet. So let's get it really good before we put it in. And that would be classic Apple approach. We're not first, we're best. There's a little bit of finger pointing of like, marketing is the ones who did this wrong. They shouldn't have been promising things we weren't ready to deliver yet. We shouldn't have had that ad out there. We shouldn't have made those claims yet. It's not the internal problem, it's the marketing problem. However, Steve Jobs was still alive when Siri launched, and he was saying, this is the interface of iPhone. I don't imagine that Steve Jobs would be pleased to find the state of Siri as it is today. So there's a little bit of like, sure, get it right, but also great artist ship. Why haven't you shipped?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting to remember the early days of SIRI, and I actually do remember that there wasn't CarPlay yet, but I was commuting quite a bit back and forth from San Francisco up to Petaluma, where we all used to work at TWiT, and so I had a lot of time to kill. But I would just sort of talk to it on my commute and just see like, well, what do I get, kind of thing. At the time, it was like, this is crazy. It's almost like having the robot just sitting next to you type thing. We have come so far since then, but Siri really hasn't.
Yeah.
No, and that's a big problem, is that it's actually gotten dumber since it was an app. And it's a huge thing. Tom, before we get the emails, Siri didn't launch on Apple when Jobs was alive, but he was a huge part of the acquisition. And I think if he were alive, to see it slowly decay as a product to be worse than the thing that he acquired, I think he would be furious with it, because he very much believed that it was going to be a huge part of the way that people interacted with it. I mean, just to remind you, that app could book you a table at a restaurant back in the day, right? I mean, we're talking 15 years ago that it could do stuff like that. That's something that, to do reliably, it could get you a cab back then. Apple's dropped the ball. And here's the reason why I think they're vulnerable. Because I don't think that the moat for top end, or what people believe as top end hardware, is as big as it once was. A lot of phones feel slick. A lot of small devices feel slick. Now, maybe by way of our current political climate, they're not going to be quite as economical. And so Apple will still maintain an advantage to create the kind of things that they do. But I'll put it this way. If OpenAI came out with a phone, I think that there's every reasonable chance that it could be massive. If Perplexity came out with a phone, or if you have smaller devices that can do certain things that rely on AI or have a chatbot sensibility, I think that there's a huge market for it, and Apple should be the unquestioned leader. Apple and Google should be the unquestioned leaders in this. And for everything that you can say about Google, they're in the game. Apple's really not. And that, I think, for them should be really, really worrying, especially because a lot of this is philosophical. I just want to read you guys something. John Andrea, this is a quote from the article. His lack of urgency may be much as philosophical as it is temperamental. Conservative about the pace of AI development and skeptical about the value of chatbots, he's argued internally that there is a little urgent threat from OpenAI, Meta, Google, and the rest. Instead, colleagues say, John Andrea maintains that what users want is an assistant as an interface for controlling devices. Despite the delays and setbacks, he still holds that vision. I partly agree with him in that I don't think that a chatbot is going to necessarily rule the world, although you can certainly look at the success that OpenAI has had with ChatGPT and say you would have liked it if Siri had that kind of impact. But the one thing that Apple has is a faith from its consumer base to put its data on your devices and on your servers. And what is money left on the table? I don't want Siri to be the best in class chatbot per se. Do I want it to know everything about me? Do I want it to leverage my data that I've put on there? Yes, because I trust Apple to do that. And the fact that they haven't is, I mean, I think it's a sign that things aren't going great there. I think that it is a fractured corporate system.
I wonder how much Apple would, and this is just, I'm just spitballing here, but, the idea that in the EU, you might have just, I don't know, maybe Siri is an option, maybe ChatGPT is an option, maybe Gemini is an option, you've got others. I wonder if Apple at some point just says, you know what, we love choice for the consumer, and let's just, put our efforts towards other things, and everyone wins.
That's what they did with search. There were all those rumors Apple was going to make a search engine. Still persist to this day. They never did. And maybe that's what they need to do here is say, you know what? Yeah, we can make some on-device intelligence that will control your settings really well. But for everything else, we'll just let you choose what your default should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you, recently I've had this like crisis in my life personally that I want to control my input better. I don't want as many alerts. I don't want my phone near me. I need to focus on things and get more out of my day. I would love for that to be a conversation between me and my phone. And it's not. And it should be.
Yeah.
There's no reason why it shouldn't be.
I think John Andrea is right that that's what we want. We want to be able to just talk to our phone and control it. I think he's right that right now, I can talk to Gemini and control my phone kinda, but it's not quite satisfying yet. But if he waits too long, Apple's going to get Nokied. And somebody, maybe it's OpenAI, who you would like, there's no way they would make a phone. The way people said, there's no way Apple would make a phone. They don't know enough about phones. That's what Nokia and Palm were saying. Maybe OpenAI does it to them if they don't get this figured out.
Well, and also the other thing is that I do think that we're due for a big UI shift on mobile technology.
Yep.
Like the tiled app experience is something that I think is passé. And we are due for a big change because the technology to leverage it has changed.
Well, we all get used to the technology we have, whether it's a chatbot, assistant, an agent, or just the newest, latest, and greatest hardware. Roger, tell us more about the folks who say, nope, I'm comfortable with what I've got.
So, in order to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Microsoft, BBC posted a very interesting story called Still Booting After All These Years, The People Stuck Using Ancient Windows Computers. Now, the thrust of the story is that a lot of machines, whether they are ATMs, whether the German railway, one particular section of the German railway, are running on a lot of archaic hardware and a lot of archaic OSs with people just not wanting to upgrade. In one story, they gave as an example the just German railway where they posted a job opening that needed someone who had expertise in Windows 3.11 as well as MS-DOS because that's what the system ran on. And they use other further examples. San Francisco's Muni system, although it is going through a system upgrade, it is the automatic train system still requires a machine that's booted by a floppy every day in order to start working. Now, one of the things they identified as the main culprit to this sort of inhibition to upgrading is the deferred maintenance. In other words, it costs money, right? It's cheaper. Things work. Might as well just let it, not touch it. The problem is with over time, the people who are skilled at running it, as well as software updates, security updates, tend to fall by the wayside. So you have a very ancient system that is really only known by a few people on how to actually operate it the way it's supposed to be, still left around working. And it got me to thinking of all the things I kind of don't upgrade over the years, even though I probably should, because it's working. Why mess with it? I mean, I have my dad's old laptop, and this is old. This thing is, 12 years old? And he still uses it every day. How heavy is that? I mean, I think this is well over 4 pounds. But it's Windows 10, and when it hits that October date, I might just spring for the $35 a year security update patches, because my dad understands how to use it. I really don't want to go train an 88-year-old on how to use a new system. It goes with his phone. He has an older Motorola phone. I bought him a newer phone, and it's like, I'm going to upgrade you. It's like, no, because he understands how to use it. And for a lot of people, that's the fear is, I understand it. I know how to use it, don't change it on me, especially if I have to relearn how to do all the things.
Yeah.
I just
I mean,
learned how to do.
the whole question is, will it work forever? And the answer is probably not. But if it works now, I countless situations I can think of, and it doesn't even mean you have to be an older person to be in this camp. It's just like, no, I don't want to rock the boat. It's almost like someone being like, this is my haircut. I like my haircut. I don't want another haircut. I like
I've
what
had
I
it
like,
since
and I know what I
1946.
know. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I think especially when you talk about institutions, these are, the revolution that we went through in terms of personal computing brought a lot of different lower cost options that you could integrate into institutions, and Windows is a huge part of that story. But what we face as consumers, especially in the Western world, is kind of a constant cycle of upgrades. There's new things we want to do. There's new hardware that we need to run it, and we are being nudged along to do it. But if you're an enterprise, if you're something like a railway system where the concept of upgrading is something that's probably as huge of a hassle as anything else that you can think of, well, keep running it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, I think there's two different situations that we're talking about here. One is a corporate situation where if there's not a security implication to using the old technology and it's working, like Justin said, there's nothing wrong with that. Personally, I think it's the same kind of principle. There's just different factors at play than massive corporate cost and public safety. But it is sort of like, yeah, I've got this really old iPad Pro sitting here that I run sound off of. It's about near Apple's end of life on operating system updates, which is extremely long. And yet I never feel like I need to upgrade it because for the things I use it for, it works great. So there's plenty of examples of that where you're like, this technology is working, I'm just going to keep it.
And for systems like SCADA units where you are operating,
I don't have any of those personally, but
so you have systems embedded with very specific, not bespoke, but very specific hardware. Like you need an RS-232 jack. You're all these things that, surprise, surprise, they work with Windows XP, but they won't work with Windows 8 and up. And so, for things like that, you would have to replace a lot in order to get even the same sort of functionality. And there's that cost versus your return on investment. Like, yeah, it's going to cost me $10 million upgrade, but is that $10 million really going to give me $10 million worth of advantage that I could do without? And so the cost is a big one, but it's also just training people. We're moving to a new system. We're going to train on you, so clear out your lunch schedules, between now and next week, because you're all going to learn how to use our new filing system, accounting system, CMS. Take your pick. Yeah, and I find it more of a UI thing than anything else. If they kept the same UI but they changed the underpinnings, I wonder if people would have the same reaction. Like, instead of having Windows 11 is built on top of Windows 10. If they kept Windows 11 looking like Windows 10, working like Windows 10, everything you learned was like Windows 10, just some of the security updates, would there be as big of an issue? Because
That's fascinating. And I do wonder, one of the things that I look in our kind of post-AI world is the speed of custom coding. And I wonder whether or not for your father, for example, you'd be able to get a new operating system that had different features that you wanted to have, for example, that don't exist on the older ones, but you'd be able to tell, some sort of, custom coding agent to be like, hey, make this look like and function like the old user interface. And so now you'd be able to keep track of certain things that be pinging to the cloud that never existed on the old OS. But for him, it would operate the exact same way.
And this would work great, especially when you're talking about, smartphones or tablets where, a lot of folks are very familiar with, I tap here, this is the thing that I open that opens my browser. I tap here. You don't change any of that. You just gave the same interface, but you do all the under the hood security updates, efficiencies, and all that stuff. Because one of the things that really bugs my dad is like every time they update something, they move the dialog box maybe a few lines below, so it's not where he normally sees it. They move the checkbox where you click OK to somewhere else, so that oftentimes companies feel like that's how you know it's new because it's a new interface.
It's different.
But it
and the
really
user
befuddles
designer's
a lot of
like, but
people.
we improved it. It's better now.
Yeah.
It was not as good before. And it's like, yeah, but I was used to it. Now,
If you imagine someone changed your front door every time it's upgraded,
right.
so the key's somewhere else, the key.
I mean,
the door
I
lock
don't
is-
like it when Instagram changes its iOS logo.
oh yeah,
Slightly.
logo changes throw everybody off.
I mean, sure, I get used to it, but it's like it is
especially
jarring.
when you're used to a color and they change the color to something entirely different.
that's the worst.
I mean, even on focusing on iOS, just because I'm thinking about it now, it's like there are iOS changes where I'm like, I don't need that widget. It's like I sometimes I am reluctant. I do it because I want to know how it works, for research purposes. But I'm sometimes reluctant to be like, let's just change my whole thing. Like I walk out of the door one day and everything's different just for fun. It's like, not really fun. I have my situation.
Fear change.
Yes, we all fear change in some level. All right. Well, what we don't fear is your feedback because it's awesome. So let's check out the mailbag.
Yeah, Charles wrote in about using tap to pay, particularly from watches. We were talking about that last week. Someone on the show, writes Charles, said something like, I don't get people who just take off from home with just their car keys and expect to pay with everything from their watch. I don't see the connection between carefree people leaving home with nothing in their pockets or purse and those that like to do tap to pay. I never leave home without my wallet because I need my driver's license. Texas doesn't yet support digital driver's licenses and digital wallets. I always take my phone too. However, I would say 90%, if not more, of the places I go accept tap to pay. And I always do that from my Apple Watch. I would be so disappointed for that to go away, even though I could always get out my wallet to grab my debit card or credit card. I also like it at restaurants, so the waiter isn't disappearing temporarily with my card.
I mean, I think we're
How
this is
European.
I know, extremely.
You're so continental, Charles.
This evolution of so I'm with you, Charles. I actually don't use my watch for tap to pay. I use my phone because I never really have my watch without my phone. But everybody's different. So I get how convenient it is. I also, there are times, doesn't happen that often, but let's say, I don't know, I'm at a gas station or, something where their tap to pay isn't working, and so it's like, all right, let me get out my card and swipe it, and they're like, I don't know, the stripe doesn't seem to be working. Swipe it again, swipe it up and down, and so you do this thing. It's like, this is what we all did not that long ago. And now I'm like, wow, what an inconvenience. Because we are all getting used to this new. Not necessarily like, oh, we all wear watches and that's how we pay for things, but that's a very convenient option. So.
Yeah. And I'm with Charles. I end up using tap to pay most of the time these days. It is
me too.
the occasional restaurant that doesn't yet have the thing that they bring over to you where you can tap. I'd say 50% of the time that's the case still in my area. But even that's getting better. And yeah, all the gas stations I go to now, they all take tap right at the pump. There's very few situations where tap isn't an option.
I know that there are many places that are cash only for a variety of reasons. You don't see as many anymore, but they certainly exist. Yep. And just the other day, I was told that there was a great bagel place in an area of town that I wasn't super familiar with. And so I was like, all right, parked, kind of a line, waiting in line. Okay, popular, I want a bagel. And get to the front, and it's like, oh, cash only. And I'm like, oh, cash only? Well, do you have an ATM machine? No. Well, do you know where there is one? No. I was like, I guess I just will leave then.
Yeah.
It's like that just we've all gotten so used to the convenience of stuff that things like that and end up throwing me off because I'm like, well, I don't have cash.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do, but I didn't that day.
What else can I trade you for this bagel then?
Yeah. Do you?
Yeah.
You want this doorknob?
Please expect my Yelp review of this obvious mob
Scarf?
front to be poor.
I don't need the scarf. Would you like my scarf? I really want a bagel right now. I just don't have $10 for this
don't even
overpriced bagel that's probably very good.
Sure, it's great. I used Tap to Pay all the time, and I have found myself, at least on short little trips, like dropping my daughter off at preschool, I've been going without anything but just the watch and the phone, you know?
There you go.
Rolling
The
the
best
dice.
day of my life was not this day, but it was pretty good. I showed up at the grocery store, and multiple times in the past, I had gone to the grocery store without my wallet, gotten all my groceries, got to the front, and had to ask the nice checker to watch my cart while I ran home and got my wallet and came back. And that beautiful day when Ralph's finally supported Apple Pay, and I'd forgot my wallet, and I was like, not a problem. Bing,
Bing.
lovely.
Yeah.
I remember the first time this happened at a place. This is at an old apartment that I lived in, and let's just say this corner store didn't seem like it would be Apple Pay friendly. You know, they just didn't really seem like they were, of the
They had
times.
that big picture of Tim Cook's face with the cross out.
We're not doing it.
Samsung Pay only.
No, they just did not seem like they were at the forefront of technology. And this is some years ago, but I always had my wallet, so it was just I never really thought about it. And then one day I was like, oh no, do you guys take Apple Pay? And they were like, yeah, of course. And I
Like,
was
yeah, we always have.
Yes, like, we always have. Like, what's your
It's funny.
problem?
Some of the smallest shops are the ones that supported it earliest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they just use Square or something, and it was integrated into it.
Yeah. Well, if you have thoughts or stories about your first Tap to Pay experience, did it change your life as it did Tom's and mine? Let us know at feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. Justin Robert Young, we are thanking you as well. Thank you so much for being with us today. You're a very busy bee, so let folks know where they can keep up with your latest.
Well, one of the things that I buzzed on over to a few weeks ago was to Western Boone Junior Senior High School in Indiana. This is about 40 minutes outside of Indianapolis. And the reason why I did, along with my compatriot Andrew Heaton, is because we sponsored the world's largest Autotoone Orchestra. If you don't know what an Autotoone is, it's this little guy. It's a Japanese synthesizer,
Ooh,
and
that's fun.
It's a fun little
nice.
device. We bought 40 of them for a high school band, and they created the world's largest Autotoone Orchestra. You can find that on YouTube. It's a very, very silly video, and I hope you guys go search for it on the We're Not Wrong YouTube channel.
I used to do the stadium announcing for the University of Illinois women's volleyball team, and there was a woman from Boone County, Indiana, that I would annouse. So I have fond memories of Boone County.
I wonder, so this is such a non sequitur, but watching NBA playoffs, Justin, I know you're doing it too. I don't know if
Sure,
everyone else is as into it as we are, but I asked somebody the other day because it's like when it's, somebody, drains a three, as they say, and it's like, loony.
Yeah.
I'm like, I wonder if that's just, they're just pressing buttons at this point, or do they always still have somebody behind the mic? I don't know.
It's somebody behind the mic for sure.
100% of the time?
100% of the time.
All right.
Because this is my favorite convention in basketball is that they have like the big James or like Curry, right? And then when the other team hits it, it's just like Jordan.
But that could all be part of like a
Jordan,
soundboard.
3.
I mean, these
could be.
days it
It
would
could
be a lot easier, right?
They've-
You could probably do.
The slope has become slippery because they're going to start using the old NBA Opens voiceover person who is passed in the NBA Opens for NBC.
Oh, really? Oh, they're bringing back his voice.
Yeah, they have cloned his voice with the family's permission and all of
Permission.
that.
So they can do the same promos that they did
Yep.
back in the 90s with Round Ball Rock.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's interesting.
I'm
But, yeah.
suspicious. I am suspicious.
John Tesh's beloved and iconic basketball.
I mean, it is beloved, that's for sure.
Yep. Well, folks, what else is beloved is the titles of this show, which I wouldn't say it's a democracy, but it's an enlightened despotism that we use because we let you vote on the titles at dtns.showbot.tv. We got some great titles out there. Top vote getter from the Wraith 86, Siri-ously out of date. Yeah. GPEG 84 with the very timely Regeneron and not me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of these streamers is doing its own thing. Wrote
nice.
Batfig 2001, Sesame Street reference there. We Fear Change from Stealth Dave. Netflix Street from Larry in Atlanta. How do you get to Sesame Street? Netflix, writes BioCow. That's how you get there now.
Yep.
Learning Humps from
I
Fred
also-
819.
Also really liked Larry's. I like my computer like I like my hair, the same as it's always been.
Yeah.
Now it's too long of a title, but Larry,
It's very good.
shout out to you on that one.
Sarah, what are we going with?
Well, we went with Seriously Out of Date from the Wraith 86.
Well done, the Wraith 86.
and
Big
well done
thanks to
everybody
everyone.
else.
Yeah. Keep those votes coming. DTNS.showbot.tv. Also, thanks to everybody who watches us on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and on Twitch. Today, we got some folks following us. Just 8 minutes ago, Frozen Fushin followed us. Thank you for the follow.
Yeah.
Zoe Brings Baker and cheered us with some bits. So did Brian M64. Brian M64 back for the 43rd month, by the way. Free money. Keep up the great work. Laminar Rainbow coming in on YouTube with the super sticker right now to make the
nice.
cut. Thank you, Laminar Rainbow. Back on Twitch, NetGuy Green resubscribed for the 71st month. And we got a shout out from Technique. Thanks for the shout outs over there to the folks at Technique. Appreciate you and all you do right here at the Daily Tech News Shoe.
We certainly do at the shoe. Daily Tech News. It's like the old lady who lived in a shoe.
She had so
Sesame
much
Street.
tech news, she didn't know what to do.
Do you remember that skit on Sesame Street where
Yes.
Kermit the Frog, like he's the reporter, he was like,
Oh,
always
yeah.
Kermit the Frog the reporter, and he was
I'd
like,
forgotten
hello,
about
hello, woman with all the children, who lives in a shoe? And she's like, I just have too many children, and all the children are sort of like little Muppets being like, bah, bah. I don't really know what the point of it was. But it was, Kermit was like on the case.
Kermit the Frog here.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a classic.
Good times. Well, whether you're a Sesame Street lover or not, we hope you love our show. A great way to show your support for DTNS is a way to wear a T-shirt. Sip coffee or tea or I don't know, warm milk, whatever you want, out of a mug. Use a mouse pad. Maybe it could be a gift for a coworker, a colleague, or somebody in your life that really likes the show.
Sticker on your laptop.
Sticker on your laptop, the new DTNS Live logo, which we all love and hope you do as well. Good-looking ways to support us and the show. Now, if you're shy and you say, well, I want that, but I don't need to send you a photo of myself with my new merch, all good. But if you want to, we'd love to see it. Maybe you're out in the wild. Maybe you're at a coffee shop. Maybe you ended up having a conversation with someone who's like, what's that? What's DTNS? And you talk about the podcast. That is all good. So thank you to everybody who supports us. dailytechnewsshow.com/store is where to find out more about the stuff that you can get from us. It's tangible. It's real life. It's IRL.
Don't turn your face away from the real.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Unless you want, I don't know,
The fake.
the wrath of the cordyceps.
Oh,
I'm making
you're
this
talking-
up.
Yeah,
But
you're,
who knows, You can watch us live Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern. That is 2000 UTC. And you can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. Guess who is joining us tomorrow, everyone? Oh, none other than Patrick Norton.
What?
Patrick Norton's always got a good topic to talk about. That'll be fun. Sorry. See you then.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.